Okay, so good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us today with the NTDC and our NTAM network. So for those of you who don't know about the network, it's something that we've recently started. It's kind of in the first stages, and it's for technical apprenticeship managers across the board of our partner affiliate organisations. So I will be sending out any information for people to join that, and it's a good place for people to kind of bounce ideas off each other. And there's a mailing list, and then excitingly, we are hoping to have a face-to-face event soon. So I'll be putting out feelers for that on the mailing list. So yeah, I'll send across details of how to join. And if you do want to get involved in that, then please do. But yeah, without any further ado, it's nice to welcome Tom Cheek from the Science Council. Tom is the Apprenticeship Lead at the Science Council and has some exciting findings to share with us today about a recent Gatsby-funded initiative, which involved a survey that went out to apprentices across the board. So I'll not do any injustice with my explanation, Tom, and I will hand over to you. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Savannah, and good morning, everyone. So yeah, as Savannah says, my name's Tom. I'm the Apprenticeship Programme Manager at the Science Council, and I've been in post there since June 2020. And in a moment, I'll try to kind of frame our work and give you a little bit of kind of scene setting and why we undertook this research. But it's really nice to be here with this network. I'm here to share with you key findings from some apprenticeship research that took place between December 2022 through to May 2023, with a report that was then created in July. Now, the context of this particular research is that we wanted to better understand how professional bodies and learned societies can contribute and enhance the apprenticeship space. How can it benefit the apprentice in terms of having maybe a widening learning experience? And how can it facilitate positive post-apprenticeship destination with that kind of longer term professional development? And there's benefits alongside that to the training provider and the employer in that it connects, we hope, a wider learning experience, wider industry skills, and better understands the workforce skill needs for apprentices longer term. As I share with you the findings, there are wider learnings, and I hope those wider learnings will be useful for yourselves as well, whether you're an employer, a mentor, an apprentice, a training provider. There's aspects within this research that we can all take away. So to help with to sharing these key findings, I've got some slides to share. So I'll just bring them onto the screen now. So I'll just make sure, Savannah, can you see that okay?
Yes, see that.
Okay, I'm just going to move the chat box across to my other screens and just bear with you 1 second. Okay, so with these slides, along the way, there'll be some slides that have like a yellow background. And when we get to those slides, there may be particular themes or topics that you can try to start reflecting upon your own experiences and maybe use the chat function to input your thoughts and ideas. And I'll be looking to present for around about kind of 15 up to 20 minutes. If a lot of kind of comments come through the chat, that might extend a little bit further. But there equally will be some time at the end if there's any areas that people particularly want to discuss or debate about. So we try to make sure there's some time to enable that. So I'll just work through the first couple of slides. For those who don't know the Science Council, we're a membership organisation. We have over 30 members, all of whom are professional bodies or learned societies in the sciences. And this slide here is really to demonstrate the kind of the range of the occupations and the industries that they serve. So when we did the survey and the research, it covered the widest range possible. So technicians in each discipline. Alongside being a membership organisation, we've also created professional registration standards, setting the standards for professional scientists. So the 4 registers are showing on the screen here. A lot of the work we're involved with apprenticeships is actually focused mainly on registered science technician and registered scientist. So although I'm not focusing on the work today, we have done a lot of work in creating shortened application routes for apprentices to become professionally registered on completion of their apprenticeship. But this is a bit more of a focus about that earlier part and thinking about what are their wants and needs and how can professional body membership best support them. As Savannah mentioned, it's a Gatsby-funded project that I'm involved with. So we have a technical education remit where we're looking at all the different technical education routes into a science career, whether that be apprenticeships, T-levels, or higher technical qualifications. And in particular, for my area, being apprenticeships, 3 things that I'm focusing on are how can we encourage more membership with professional bodies whilst an apprentice so they can gain those benefits. Secondly, how can we support professional registration on completion of the apprenticeship? And then just generally, how can we contribute to raising the profile and prestige of apprenticeships and why they deliver kind of excellence to the workforce? So just wanted to share that to give you a bit of a background to really understand why we did this research in the first place. So the research theme, this is the main topic. We wanted to know more about the wants, the needs, the aspirations, and the challenges of apprentices. Because as a professional body community, if we understand that better, we can then serve through a better and stronger membership offer. So that was the kind of the general remit of our research. The areas that we wanted to explore were to find out what are the main challenges apprentices face during the apprenticeship. And from that, who do they access and approach for support? What is their sense of identity? Do they consider themselves an apprentice, a student, or an employee, or a combination of those? And again, I'll explain a little bit later on why we asked that particular question in the context of our work. For those aspirations, where do apprentices see their next step? Where do they want to go beyond the completion of the apprenticeship? And then in terms of the professional body aspect, we wanted to know, are they currently engaged with professional bodies? If they are so, what motivated them to join? And what features of professional body membership do they most value? Or if they're not already a member, what features would really help them whilst they're an apprentice? This kind of summarises the structure and the scale of the research. So we started off with some in-depth interviews. We actually had over 130 expressions of interest wanting to be part of that, which was super encouraging. It really demonstrated that apprentices want to add their voice into the mix and kind of share their experiences. We then had an interim report where we looked at those findings. And from that, we then created a wider survey to try to validate some of those findings and identify where are those key wants, needs, aspirations, and challenges. In terms of the type of apprenticeships that were covered within this, we surveyed from levels 3 through to level 7. A significant number of those were in technician roles as well, whether it be laboratory technicians or science manufacturing technicians, water industry technicians, education technicians, and healthcare type technician roles as well. So there was a broad range of feedback in terms of the survey. So this first question we asked was, as an apprentice, how do you identify yourself? So if you have any opinion on what you think the trend would have been for this is where you can use the chat function. You can use an abbreviation of A, E, or S, if that's easier for you to put it into the chat. But where do you think an apprentice would identify themselves? Apprentice, employee, or student? And I'll just give it a moment in case there's any come through on the chat. So we've got an employer there, apprentice, apprentice, okay. So there tends to be there through the chat function, the majority of the answers seem to be saying apprentice or employer, employee, sorry, specifically, and then we had the odd student. Okay, well, here are the findings of the research itself. It would demonstrate this network has got a good finger on the pulse because that's what the findings would demonstrate as well. So that apprentices certainly consider themselves very much an employee and an apprentice, but less so as a student. Now, the reason we asked that question in the context of professional bodies is that if a membership offer is termed as student membership, that immediately might make it seem to an apprentice that it's not the right membership offer for them. So sometimes the actual features of membership, a student membership, might be really valuable for an apprentice, but because it's termed as student, it creates a barrier immediately. Just as a couple of interesting points on there, for those who are surveyed who are 25 years or older, they tended to lean more towards identifying as being an employee. And for 19 to 24-year-olds, there was a more emphasis on being an apprentice. Okay, next part. So the next question we asked there about the challenges of being an apprentice. So again, through this network, what would we consider to be the main kind of 1 or 2 challenges that apprentices face to successfully conclude their program and whilst they're on program? So it'll just be interesting to see what people's thoughts are here within this network. So I'll just give it a moment in case there's any that come through on the chat function before I share the findings. Okay, balancing study and work development, having appropriate work and training, balancing work and studies, work-study balance. Okay, there's some really, good responses there. Completing of courses. Okay, thank you so much for your input in there. So these are some of the findings that came through on our research. So these are the unprompted responses. And the number 1 challenge was work-life balance, as correctly kind of listed within the chat function as well. And then followed by lack of support from a training provider. And that demonstrates sometimes the inconsistency in the quality that an apprentice experiences depending on the provision of that particular program. Now, when we delved a little bit deeper and we went into some more prompted responses, that balance issue was more to do with work, life, and study balance. And that then compounded the issue of having to meet study deadlines. There was a definite challenge there. Obviously, there's the note that there's a challenge in having a low salary, being an apprentice, which one can expect. And then the next 4 challenges as listed were all kind of again focused on the training provider. Lack of organisation, lack of communication, or travel if that's required for like maybe some type of block release. And then the final challenge I'll just emphasise there is about studying independently. So for many apprentices, they may be working with cohorts that are based nationally. So there'll be a lot more online learning, a lot more requirement to time manage. But as kind of line managers and mentors, having this understanding that there's a real challenge between balancing that work life and study and meeting study deadlines means we can consider how can we support them with their off-the-job learning, structuring time to complete assignments, having regular reviews to identify are they having a particular heavy period of assignment work that needs time to respond and complete. So again, it's just worth sometimes having that reminder that there's a real challenge as an apprentice to balance all those key challenges. I thought I'd also just share a couple of quotes that came along there, just again to further demonstrate and emphasise that challenge of work, life, and study. Juggling all the work was a note on this particular quote. Maintaining a balance of work, academic study, and life. Some apprentices emphasised that they sometimes felt their employer felt that they were neglecting parts of their work, but it's because they were really struggling with maintaining and keeping up to date with their study activity. Okay, so they're the challenges, but where's the support? Where do apprentices go if they feel they need that support mechanism? So again, just using our shared insights and experiences, using the chat function, where are the key support mechanisms that apprentices would seek? I'll just give it a moment in case there's any responses in the chat function. Okay, mentors and line managers. And there's a strong trend coming through in the chat. Okay, thanks so much for those inputs, Apprenticeship Program Manager. Brill. Okay, so going back to the responses. So unsurprisingly, the top level of support is definitely identified as being the line manager and the mentor. There's also the apprenticeship manager further down in that list as well. Interestingly, they do also consider the other apprentices a really strong area of support, that peer learning. And there was more emphasis on having support from apprentices that are on the same program, but not necessarily within the same employing organisation, over other apprentices in the workplace. And that might be because they have the same scheme of work that they're working through, the same challenges of assignment, and they can share and support work in that way. Or I should just go back one as well and say, so you can see towards very near the bottom there is professional body. So again, in the area of my work, that gives me kind of area to develop and to consider how can that be supported further. Okay, aspirations. So where do apprentices see their next step? What do they hope to move on to post-apprenticeship? So again, we'll use our group thoughts here. So if you want to use the chat function to put in some ideas of where you feel apprentices aspire beyond their existing apprenticeship. Employment, full-time salaried role, progression on another apprenticeship, promotions, employment, full-time employment. Okay, fantastic. Great, thanks again so much for your great input there. That's fantastic. So here are the findings. Going from the left-hand side, the number one aspiration is to establish that career in the current role. So again, very much replicating what's coming through on the chat function there. Now that's great news for employers, and it's also probably really helpful for a business case because it demonstrates that apprentices are committed and they want to stay with their employer and establish their career. But alongside that, they also want to complete further qualifications, and that could be through another apprenticeship, as suggested in the chat function as well. And we know with the occupational maps on the Institute for Apprenticeships Technical Education page, there's more information to help guide on what that next stage of an apprenticeship could be, or another aspect of technical education, whether it be higher technical qualifications. There was also a note that they wanted to apply for a more senior role, so have that internal promotion, and also to have that support on becoming professionally registered. So to have that kudos and to have that recognition, that professional status. Okay, so moving on to membership, we wanted to find out from an apprentice whether they're already a member of a professional body. And if they are so, who actually introduced them to that idea. So I'll first of all share with you the kind of the rate of uptake of membership, and then we'll explore a little bit about who kind of recommends membership as a positive kind of aspect of their career development. So the majority of those that were surveyed are not currently engaged with professional bodies. Near on 60% are not a member. So yeah, only 40% are engaged in some form. Now, for those that actually are engaged, the main reason for that is through their line manager and their mentor suggesting to them and advising to them that that's a positive contribution to their career development. So as line managers and as mentors, we have a strong role in ensuring that they know who are the professional bodies for their particular sector and discipline and occupation and industry that can best serve that. Now, for those who answered yes for motivating to join, what do we feel would be the reasons why apprentices would consider that as something they should do within their career? So again, use the chat function here if you wish for reasons why you feel an apprentice would be a member of a professional body. Recognition, future support, progression, professional registration, professional status. Okay, fantastic. Again, thanks for the input on that one. So if we come back to the slide, in terms of motivation, the two key ones is about supporting career progression, and the other motivation, it was a recommendation. So from others who are maybe more experienced in industry, who may themselves have benefited from an association with a professional body, by them recommending it to the apprentice was motivation enough for them to explore that in more detail. Now, for those that aren't a member, for which we know that's the majority, what's the barrier? We know there's benefits. We understand that there's kind of, and I can explain some of the features of that later on and what could be seen as the most beneficial parts. But what are the barriers? And we've got finance coming through there and cost. Understanding the value of it. Yeah, what actually are the features and benefits of membership? Again, we've got cost, not understanding the benefits, cost. Okay, brilliant. Yeah, this again, really good to see that kind of couple of trends coming through. In terms of the results on the survey, by far the biggest issue is a lack of understanding, a lack of information, and just being able to connect how membership can be part of their career development and what it enables them to do and how it can facilitate career growth or professional development in that way. It's true to say that subscription costs were a factor, but as you can see, they are lower down in the list of barriers. And the lack of information, or maybe the fact that there's a subsidised rate or a free cost of membership for apprentices through some type of kind of learner student membership, again, is something that needs to be informed in more detail to support apprentices in that way. But absolutely, there was a very strong result that just lack of information and lack of understanding. But we also know, going back a few slides, that for those that are engaged, it's due to recommendation through their line manager and mentors. So we have a really strong role for those of us experienced in the industry to support and encourage and to navigate apprentices towards the prospects of being a member with a professional body. Okay, communication. So we actually posed the question, how do you or would you prefer to communicate and engage with a professional body? Because we didn't know whether this might be a barrier. Are the way that professional bodies actually engaging with this particular audience resonating and captivating in that way? So again, just I'm going back to this network again. What do we feel would be the main preferences of communication for apprentices? Okay, we've got an online coming through. Email, online. Yeah, I mean, this is a good example of an online network where accessibility is so much easier. We can all dial in quickly and easily. Email, okay, that's good. It's interesting to see that this network recognised email as a potential preference. I will say that probably wasn't on our radar when we posed that as a question, but when I share the results, again, it will show that you, as a network, have got a good finger on the pulse of what's kind of maybe the aspiration, what are the kind of preferences of communication. Because here they are, and on the left-hand side, I've kind of circled it there in a purple box about what are the key preferences. Number one is in-person events. Apprentices really want to engage and network with others in a face-to-face, in-person environment. But alongside that, and the third one that's near in the middle there, we do still have the live online conferencing. So that kind of, again, connects with some of the suggestions in the chat function. But in the middle, and probably surprising to us, I would say, but less so by the looks of it in this chat function, was email. Email did come through as quite a strong preference as a way that apprentices would like to communicate. When that was delved into a little bit more detail, there seemed to be this connection between creating emails for professional life and social media more for personal life. So it kind of almost like created a little bit of separation in that way. And there was also feedback to suggest that emails are used so extensively within the work setting that it just was a natural progression to continue that in the way they would engage with a professional body. Okay, so the value of the actual features of membership. We asked apprentices, what features of professional body membership would you or do you most value? And these were the key findings. I'm going to start with the table at the top first of all, and I've kind of again put a red square around the key findings. Face-to-face networking opportunities came up really high, mentoring and webinars. And then on the table at the bottom, We've got training courses. Now, when we explored what was meant by training courses, because we thought, well, they're on an apprenticeship course, they're doing lots of learning and they want more learning through more training courses. What is that actually they're after? And the feedback we had from apprentices is that it's more around those soft skills, those employment enablers, whether it be career planning or confidence in presentation or kind of dealing with conflict management, those kind of things that aren't necessarily the technical skills, but the skills that can help them within their employment and in their career growth. Then there was masterclasses, which then might be more focused on the technical skills and being particular to their occupation. Access to articles and research to help their own research activity for their apprenticeship, and access to conferences, again, for speakers and for particular topics that might give them a bit more breadth in their learning as an apprentice. So these were the kind of key features that were seen of most benefit. Now, for those that were actually members at that particular time, the things they emphasised that they consider as having most value, again, is networking opportunities and learning resources. That's what they valued most by being a member. And then when we asked those who weren't members, what would be the most valuable benefit? The most common answer was, I'm unsure, I don't know what the benefits are. So again, that really further kind of validates the earlier findings, was suggesting there's a lack of information and a lack of understanding on how being a member of a professional body can support them as an apprentice in terms of their learning and in terms of their destination. So if we just summarise that, the key things that apprentices said they want, their wants and needs, is they want to have more access to face-to-face networking opportunities. Now, obviously, I'm approaching this from the perspective of professional body membership, but as an employer, there might be face-to-face networking opportunities outside of that, more internally, that you can consider as well. Mentoring. So that really demonstrates the importance of having a strong mentoring program within your apprenticeship provision and through your kind of early career content as well. Access to webinars, access to those training courses, those kind of employment enabler, those transferable skills that we mentioned a moment ago. Access to masterclasses to allow them to explore very specific topics, get access to experts. So again, there may be areas that you can apply this within your own organisation if it's not through a professional body. Access to conferences, because that gives them the chance for that face-to-face networking, and access to articles and research to help and expand their knowledge and awareness. So that's the key wants and needs. And then when we try to connect that to what are common benefits of professional body membership, there's access to networks, events, conferences and workshops, publications, continuous professional development, mentoring programs, horizon scanning, thinking about the future workforce skill needs and how to position yourself so you're prepared and ready for that. There's the opportunity to be involved in outreach, promoting apprenticeships, promoting the particular careers for which they're involved with, and committees and groups, special interest groups, raising the apprentice voice and being ambassadors to ensure that those voices are heard and that there's features of support that can help with it. So there's a real strong connection between what apprentices want and need and how professional bodies can enhance and support that environment. So just some early activity that we've done since those findings. The first thing that we look to do is we've supported the Science Apprenticeship Forum, who created and delivered the first Science Apprenticeship Conference in Nottingham in September. Now, the uptake of that was fantastic. It was oversubscribed. There was a waiting list of apprentices that wanted to come in person. So again, it further kind of resonates to demonstrate that apprentices want to engage face-to-face and network in that way. And I'm not going to necessarily talk through the slide, but on the right-hand side, you can see the type of activities that were included in that particular conference, and that for which the agenda was driven forward, the program was driven forward by the apprentices themselves. So yeah, that demonstrates that benefit of connections, networking, and face-to-face. We're also doing work within our own community now in thinking about what is the membership offer that we're providing to apprentices. So we've created a benchmarking self-assessment toolkit to the professional bodies to allow them to explore their current membership and consider, is it kind of hitting the wants and needs of apprentices? Does it have the features that's going to support them in their careers as an apprentice and beyond? And how are we promoting this? Are we promoting it to the right audiences? So we're doing some more work on thinking about how we can share the benefits of membership with employers and line managers and mentors, so that again can be further shared with apprentices. And then this is just another example. On our Science Council website, we have toolkits that now allow training providers or employers with their apprentice to do some self kind of facilitated activity, looking at what would be a relevant professional body for their particular occupation. So although obviously we're in the sciences, that same kind of toolkit can be applied no matter your industry and no matter your occupation. I should have noted at the start as well, all these slides we will be sharing with you. I'll be sharing with Savannah, who will distribute, so you'll have access to all these links. Okay, so that really concludes the main part of my presentation there. Thanks so much for the input within the chat function. And I'll stop sharing my screen, but we've got some time in case there's any particular areas that people would like to discuss or any questions people might have.
Thank you very much, Tom, and yeah, really insightful findings there. I think it's yeah, particularly interesting to see what people were saying in the chat and how that kind of resonated with the results. So yeah, thank you ever so much for sharing. And like you say, we will share this so people can reference, and also the recording will be available for people to refer back to. And I believe Lawrence has raised his hand.
I have. Thanks for that, Tom. That was great. One comment, one question. The first comment is, I think you said that the figure for aspiration to join a professional body was 35% in your data cohort. I actually find that very encouraging because I don't have the figures. I know NTDC have done studies with this and sort of STEM technicians in general, but I don't think it's that high. And my own personal impression working in a university and being involved in this is it's nothing like as high as 35%. So I'm really encouraged by that figure. The second thing is your data cohort, is this an ongoing study, Tom? Are you going to add to it? And I tell you why I say that. You said there's a problem a putative problem in terms of support with training providers. Now, I don't know if there are ethical implications to what I'm about to say, but I suspect that's a variegated picture, and it depends on whether you're in a university or certain types of industries. And I'm wondering if your study will actually break that down a little bit further, or if there are ethical barriers to doing things like that.
Thank you, Lawrence. In terms of the legacy element of this particular research, our focus in particular for 2024 is to ensure that our own community of professional bodies take these findings through our benchmarking self-assessment toolkit to look at their own membership offer, to think about, is this best serving the needs of apprentices based upon those findings? And additional to that, we're wanting some legacy work that will support line managers and mentors to be able to better promote membership, because we recognise that they are essentially the ones that inform apprentices in a way, and they're the best support mechanism. In terms of the quality of training provision, I suppose there is the Quality Alliance for apprenticeships, whether it be off-qual or Ofsted. So I don't necessarily think we'd be going too far into that space specifically, but I will say that we do have, we network with the Education Training Foundation, for example, who are developing the Apprenticeship Workforce Development Programme. So the kind of insights that we can give relating to this, for example, inconsistent communication, maybe as one example, like we can advise that to the ETF, and through the Apprenticeship Workforce Development Programme, they can ensure that there's CPD activity being developed that makes sure that delivery staff of apprenticeships understand the importance of regular communications, regular momentum, clarity on assignment deadlines and support with it. So I think that's the kind of the approach we'll be taking in terms of the quality aspects. We will be measuring success of the actual particular and the impact of this. So we'll be looking at what has been the change in membership offer based upon that. And depending on funding, if we can secure funding that allows us to do further research to identify how apprentices are engaging in the future, of course, it's something we would like to do. But thank you for the question, Lawrence.
And Tom, I think you've just got one from Zachary Parkinson in the chat that says, firstly, good morning, Tom, and thank you for a great presentation. I noticed that there are apprenticeships that have professional registration mandated into the apprenticeship standard. Why do you think this is not the case across the board?
I suppose for some industries where they're regulated, there's the regulatory requirement to have that professional status. Certainly in the environment that I work within the sciences, it's a voluntary process in most cases. So you know, a large part of our work is demonstrating the value and the importance of professional registration. And this really actually is another significant driver of why this research took place, because in many ways you're engaging with apprentices at the end of their program who aren't engaged with professional bodies, haven't seen the benefits and the value of what they can actually bring. Whereas if we can have an earlier relationship where apprentices are a member whilst they're an apprentice, and then on completion of their apprenticeship, the natural progression is to become professionally registered. That is like the natural path of progression and how professional bodies can support in that way. We also know that, again, in the sciences, the uptake of professional registration for apprentices is low. And part of that is sometimes seeing it as a complex process. I know, for example, Lawrence does a lot of work to try to support in that particular area to remove those barriers. But we've tried to remove the barriers by making it a streamlined, shortened application that recognises the knowledge, skills and behaviours that are already demonstrated through completing the apprenticeship, and therefore making the process of registration that much easier and quicker.
Thank you, Tom, and hopefully, Zachary, that answers your question. But please do pop in the chat if there's anything else. And then something else from Ian. When I look at the apprenticeship standards, I find technician scientist rather than science technician. Should this be changed? I don't know if you can see that there.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. So obviously in that kind of channel of apprenticeships, you have laboratory technician, technician scientist, and then you have laboratory scientist, which is currently being revised as well with a potentially different term. In terms of the actual term and the name, obviously that's something that's driven through from the Trailblazer group that's made up of the employers. So apart from recognising that comment on there, I can only advise that I know it's called technician scientist as well, and the reasons for that would be something within the Trailblazer group.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. And then Ian, if that is something that you want to discuss and you are part of the mailing list on the network, then that could be something that could be maybe taken to that group and discussed. And then another one saying, are you suggesting a new professional body of joining something like the IET?
I'm just looking at that question myself. Sorry, Savannah.
Yeah, no, you're okay.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what they mean in the context of that question, actually. So if you can give a little more detail, I'm happy to try to answer that, but I'm not quite sure how to respond in that particular question.
No worries. And then Lawrence, I think you've just raised your hand.
Yeah, I was just going to make really a tangential point, which is there is evidence to suggest in terms of what you might call semantics, what they're called. There's actually there is a body that would actually like to have an accreditation rather than chartered scientist technician, and I think this is particularly associated with school science technicians. I don't have the data, but I do know that the actual terminology, and I think this illustrates this, is actually quite important to some people. Some people would actually, personally not, but there are people out there that would that are pushing or are trying to push for a chartered scientist technician register. So clearly, what you're called is important.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think another comment just came through from Susie saying not all technicians will see themselves as scientists, so technician would be better. And I think maybe just referencing back to what Tom said about this, obviously being in the realm of the Science Council, so it is kind of science focused, but it is applicable to probably most, if not all, apprentices, because they will kind of be going through the same process regardless of the area that they're in. I don't know, Tom, if you would agree with that. based on the findings?
Yeah, I think it would be safe to assume that the key findings would, I would imagine, could be replicated outside of the fact it was specific to science in that way. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of the processes that that you kind of explored through the survey and that were demonstrated through the findings are kind of more about the apprenticeship as opposed to the area that the apprenticeship is in. So
yes,
yeah, it would be interesting. And also the toolkit that you mentioned, and I'll share details about that as well. Hopefully that would be useful to people kind of regardless of what area you are working in or your apprentices are working in.
Yeah, absolutely. Although again, it has that science angle. It's been created so that, you know, others can benefit or look to adapt it slightly if it would be of value as well.
Yeah, definitely. So somebody's saying that they view themselves as an engineering technician rather than a scientist. And yeah, and there's people that are working also in arts and media and things that might be doing apprenticeships, a technical apprenticeship, you know, that they would consider themselves both a technician and an apprentice, and nothing to do with a scientist, but that this would probably be quite helpful to them kind of moving forward as well.
I'd say on this as well, Savannah, if anyone ever has the opportunity to be involved with trailblazer groups as well, to kind of put in these kind of insights and you know, as an apprentice to put in your views and about how you identify yourselves and what you kind of title resonates for yourself. These are all really valuable to know. So it's essentially the trailblazer group that create that activity that will go to the IFATE panel for approval. So to have that kind of on the kind of ground understanding and explaining, you know, how it's seen in industry, it is really valuable. And sometimes when you're in some of these trailblazer groups, it's quite limited, maybe the range of the voice. So to have as many voices in that space would be very valuable. So if there's anyone here that would like to be involved with trailblazer groups, I can introduce you to the IFATE relationship managers to maybe support that.
Yeah, that would be great, Tom. Thank you. And then if it's okay with you, I'll include your details in the follow-up email when I share everything with everybody so people can contact you.
Yeah.
And just a comment there from a question, sorry, from Zachary. Do you have any case studies or videos from apprentices who have been involved in the process? It will be great to be able to share it with others to educate them of the benefits.
Yeah, on this, so we have a technical education website that will, again, I'll share with yourself, Savannah, to go out with the wider communications. And in there, we're building case studies of apprentices who have now completed and have also become professionally registered. And they talk about how they found being a member of a professional body supportive whilst they're an apprentice, and how professional registration is helping them beyond the apprenticeship itself as well. So, and we're looking to grow those over the course of the next year.
That's great. Yeah, and also I think it would again saying that we can kind of replicate the findings that you know, other registrations that people can join, like regardless of the area that you're in. There's the Engineering Council, there's a new professional register with IST and Creative UK for creative technicians and creative practitioners. So there's lots of scope to kind of apply these findings and these trends kind of in your areas of work and in your areas for the apprentices. And then Zachary says, that's great. Looking forward to taking a look and hope to be part of it in the future. So
Fantastic.
That's fantastic. Are there any more questions for anybody? We've got Lawrence. Lawrence, you're on mute. Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick comment. Yeah, I mean, as somebody that works for the Science Council, the NTDC, and, you know, sort of surveys the field in terms of professional registration in particular, I do know that one concern in terms of joining professional bodies is finding one that fits. So one thing, my workshops, say for NTDC and the Science Council, have sort of evolved over time. So the one proviso I always make is, look, if you can't find an exact fit, because I think STEM, by definition, in fact, the creative arts as well can be very specialist. So if there's something that doesn't fit you, actually, you've always got, I hope this doesn't sound pejorative, it's not meant to, but you've always got the fallback of the IST. And I do know people have come to me and have actually said, well, I cannot professionally register because I can't find a body that fits me. Well, actually, you can. You can always go through the IST if you are a technician. So I tend to stress that a lot. And I think that there might be a case for sort of putting that message out there more.
Yeah, it can be, for those of us that are directly involved in this subject, it can sometimes feel quite complex. So you kind of think, for those who maybe aren't engaged, it can be a real minefield. But essentially, I think it's really important that we make sure there's a distinction between membership and professional registration. So the benefits of a membership whilst you're an apprentice and the benefits of professional registration on completion in the context of this work is our very kind of focused approach.
Yeah, and people can kind of feel free. I think one of the benefits of having the wider network across the NTDC and how many universities and higher education providers are represented is that, please do feel free to kind of bounce ideas off one another about what your apprentices and your teams are doing in that area, because it might just be something that perhaps you've not seen before, or you've not been, able to explore, or it just hasn't come to your attention that somebody else might be actively doing, that you can kind of share ideas on. So please do feel free to utilize one another and kind of use the connection that we do have between organizations as well.
I also think possibly this kind of area of topic will become probably a wider discussion over the coming months. They've just recently talked about the post-apprenticeship recognition scheme, so that apprentices that are level 3 or higher will potentially have post-nominals, similar if you went to university with a degree and a master's. So that's kind of coming together, and we'll hope that, if anything, that will kind of work in a dual way with the kind of activity that we're doing, and better raising the profile of the benefits of being professionally registered once you complete.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jan popped a comment in the chat there, just saying that she agrees with you, Lawrence, about there being, options to join different membership bodies, even if you can't find something specific to your role. So I don't think we've got any more questions. If there are any, please do pop them in the chat. And if we do have anything afterwards, I'm sure Tom will be happy to answer them via email. And I will also be sharing this recording plus the slides and any other resources that you send through, Tom. So yeah, thank you all very much for joining us, and thank you very much, Tom. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we let people continue with their day?
No, so just say thank you so much for everyone to offer some of your time to come and listen to our findings, and I hope you can take some of those findings away to help you in your role as a line manager, mentor, or an apprentice. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, and thank you very much, Tom, for joining us.
Lovely. Thank you.